So in the very graphic video of him being shot, you can see the wound coming into his neck right around where I'm indicating. And he tips backwards right after he's shot. And he brings his arms up. But actually, when he's bringing his arms up, he's exhibiting what we call decorticate posturing.
Decorticate posturing. Let's put those words up on screen.
It's an artery that's hit, more likely than not, the carotid artery and the jugular vein. So he's hemorrhaging heavily out the side of his neck as he's falling to the ground.
Dr. Kendall Crowns, Chief Medical Examiner for Tarrant County, who was interviewed by Nancy Grace, seems to believe Kirk's spinal cord was severed.
Now, this spinal cord being severed at this level could be below C5, C6, so he could still be breathing and still be alive.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. So was Charlie Kirk's spinal cord severed? Well, I believe the autopsy report is going to refute this, and we're going to be dealing with that in this episode. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please do hit the thanks button and let's get started. The 9-degree downward angle is less relevant here than the lateral trajectory. I suspect the right to left angle is simply too little to hit the spine unless it was significantly deflected, which of course is possible. We just don't know for sure at this point. I think what's more likely is that a shock wave moved along the spinal cord, which may have damaged it and may have caused neurological damage, but I don't think the right to left angle was enough to hit the spinal cord. Of course, what is going to be critical is the type of round that was used, the type of ammunition, because that is crucial in determining the type of damage to the tissues. And that is the closest we're going to get to an autopsy report for the time being. Incidentally, in the Thomas Crooks incident, they were able to precisely replicate not just the angle, but all the bullets fired by piecing together video footage and using 3D modeling. This was also done 2 weeks after the incident by the media rather than via an official report. Did you know that in fact 2 weeks after that incident, there wasn't even official confirmation that President Trump was shot and hit by a bullet? The New York Times compiled an analysis of bullet trajectories, footage, photos, and audio, and based on this drew the obvious conclusion that the president had been shot. At the time, though, incredibly, it wasn't actually officially confirmed. Now, we're likely to see the same thing in this case, but unlike in the Crooks case, we'll see this in a courtroom with the shooter present. You may remember that initially the reason the FBI couldn't be trusted was because no autopsy had been done on Charlie Kirk. Now the story has evolved to an autopsy has been done, but the autopsy is hinky, and that's why we can't trust the FBI. Because whatever's in the autopsy disputes the story, the official story. Well, obviously, a fictional autopsy report can dispute the official story. And obviously, one has been done. It's required by Utah law under these circumstances. But now the narrative is that the autopsy report, which no one has actually seen, by the way, this is what the autopsy report in the Chris Watts case looks like. Is there anyone here that has actually seen an autopsy report? That autopsy report made the news about 3 weeks after the incident. We're only just about reaching that point now. But it was only released to the public about 3 months later. And you may remember when Gene Hackman died on February 18th, his autopsy report was only released to the media on April 28th, more than 2.5 months later. Now the narrative is that the fake bullet trajectory in the fake autopsy report debunks the Tyler Robinson trajectory.
Ho, ho, ho! Fiction can be fun!
And you can see quite a few channels are having fun with this apparently authentic. But let me be very clear. In the Charlie Kirk case, we don't have an autopsy report. This is a huge problem if you want to talk about trajectories and the type of injuries Charlie Kirk sustained. But don't worry, social media is rigged to fill up information vacuums just like that, with news, right? With facts, right? with accurate scientific analysis. Not so? Pfft. No, of course not, with hot air. Whenever you see a creator put air quotes around a word, that's already a sign that you're not dealing with facts. Instead, you're dealing with quote-unquote facts. The creator I watch spends the first minute explaining that everything he's about to say is an assumption, but that didn't stop 500,000 people from assuming with him, and probably assuming wrongly. Why do you want to talk about different trajectories as if you have the autopsy report in hand, when the autopsy would be telling you unambiguously what the bullet path was, just one single bullet path? The whole point of the effing autopsy is to clarify exactly what the injuries were, not speculate what they were. And you'll notice almost all of these creators tend to exaggerate what the likely injuries were. A lot of them want the trajectory to go through the head, which it didn't. Some folks are still speculating about a head injury when the sniper's position up there has absolutely been debunked. How can you have a sniper nest in a particular area when you've got video evidence at the time that doesn't show anybody there? Well, because people have just stopped looking. They've already accepted, based on a minimum of evidence, that something is true. Why? Because they want to believe it's true. Why are you discussing autopsy, that's quote-unquote autopsy results that influencers have access to, but nobody else? Not Charlie Kirk's inner circle, not the media. This is a classic case of social media so desperate to get its paws onto something that it simply invents it, and suddenly they have a quote-unquote scoop. I've seen this happen so many times in true crime. Now let me ask you a question. Can you solve this equation? By far the majority of responses I saw answered this with the number 3. The correct answer is 0. Now why would you follow someone who's already getting the basics wrong? Would you want someone who can't solve this to teach you math? Because that's what's happening all over social media, including and especially in true crime. And this is why an authentic voice is so necessary. An authentic voice is actually so rare in a landscape that is so incentivized to exaggerate, to distort, to tell you what you want to hear, but essentially to spread fake news and to lie to you. Why would you want to follow people like that?
Food for thought.
Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. Look out for the number 9 clue everyone missed, and I'll see you guys next time.